right. So welcome everyone to Outspoken, the Publishing Triangle's monthly reading, February edition. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which is an all-volunteer independent queer bookstore that my partner Donnie Jochum and I founded in 2012, and that has been here at the LGBT Community Center since 2014. As an independent, all-volunteer queer bookstore, we rely on both sales and donations to keep this machinery going. So I'm going to pass around a bag. If you're able to make a donation, great. If you'd rather support us by buying books, that's also great. We will leave that up to you. And there is also a QR code on Venmo if you'd like to give through Venmo. But there's some change in the bag for those big bills you're all carrying.
Don't rush me.
Thank you.
Everyone's watching. And anyone watching online on YouTube can make a donation through Venmo if you'd like to do that at BGSQD. We have regular business hours Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. and then we often stay open later when we have events such as this. And if you're not already on our email list, you can sign up for that at the back of the room or on our website, bgsqd.com, and you'll get an email every other Monday about our upcoming events. So please do that. Before I bring up Rob Burns of the Publishing Triangle, I just want to give a land acknowledgement. The Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We strongly encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community House, which was founded in 1969 and exists here in Manhattan. And signing up to make a monthly donation to AICH is one way for settlers and non-Native people to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at aich.org. And the Bureau also recognizes Palestinian liberation as a fundamental part of our collective queer liberation. And we hope you will take one of our free zines. Actually, we need to make a few more, but we'll make one specially for you, custom made, that talks about why we feel it is especially important for queer people to speak out in solidarity with Palestinians. So that is it from me. I'm going to bring up Rob Burns from the Publishing Triangle, and we're going to kick this off. Thank you, everyone. Literally just push.
Physics, how do they work? Thank you, everyone. First, for those of you who are not familiar with the Publishing Triangle, for the last 38 years, we've been promoting LGBTQ plus literature, publishing, looking for ways that we can support queer people who are in the industry as well as writers. We have been giving out awards since 1988. We have our 2026 award ceremony honoring the best literature published in 2025 on Thursday, April 16th, starting at 6:30. Please be there. It's free. I cast no aspersions on any other literary organization, queer or not, but our ceremony's free, our reception's free. Yeah, there are no specialty cocktails, but there are wine, beer, food, and a great evening. So please come. Oh, and it's going to be at the New School here in actually just a block away, 6th and 12th. Well, a couple of blocks away. So please plan on joining us. Anyway, let's get to our program tonight. I have done this a zillion times. I've done it even on wine, but I've never done it on Novocaine, Aleve, and Dayquil. So I will try to stay up. Our first reader tonight, by the way, three of our readers are virtual tonight. One is in the room. We will get to him. But our first reader tonight is Russ Lopez. Russ is a writer, editor, publisher, and historian whose work explores the deep connections between people, place, and identity. He's the author of 6 nonfiction books, including The Hub of Gay Universe, an LGBTQ history of Boston, Provincetown, and beyond. And he's the founder and editor of Latin Lit, an online literary magazine dedicated to publishing fiction by and about Latin people and expanding the range of stories available in contemporary literature. His most recent book, Provincetown Stories, brings to life the joy, contradictions, and irresistible pull of P-Town through characters who exist proudly outside the mainstream. Please join me in welcoming Russ Lopez.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's always a little strange to be online rather than in person. I much prefer to actually have interaction with people, though isn't always possible. But also, thank you for letting me talk about my book and do a little reading about it. It's always strange to meet people who visit Provincetown when you live there because they sort of come in and out, but they add to a certain, I don't know, joy or wildness to see people who are perhaps, hung up in their daily lives wherever they are to come someplace where they can be themselves for a day, a week, a month, or a lifetime. So I was trying to capture the special excitement of Provincetown. I don't know who there in the audience, online or in person, have been there, but those of you who have know that it has a certain specialness in the air. So tonight I wanted to read one selection. This is a book of short stories, and I have I have several that are very serious. There's one about a man who hasn't been able to go back to Provincetown for 25 years because he had met his lover there who had died of AIDS, and is finally coming back, and covers serious issues throughout the town. But also a lot of them are just, the stories are simply joyful. And that's the one I want to read tonight. It's called Carnival. For those who have ever been, I want you to imagine what it's like. And for those who haven't been to Provincetown or to Carnival, you really might want to think about it after you hear this. People were pouring in from points south, north, and west to watch the parade. They drove up in parked cars, bicycled en masse, and flew into Provincetown's little airport, adding more bodies to the 50,000 staying in town who were already crowding narrow Commercial Street to well beyond tolerable capacity. And more were coming. Rumor had it that traffic was so bad it took over 2 hours to get to town from the Orleans Rotary 25 miles away. Per tradition, the festivities had commenced on Saturday and hadn't stopped since. A week ago, banners were hung across the street advertising dances, pool parties, and booze cruises. For days, businesses featured Carnival Week specials, beckoning people to buy souvenir T-shirts and special Carnival cocktails. As dawn broke, folding chairs had been set up by old-timers, strategic spots in front of stores had been taped off, and parked cars had been towed. By noon, there were so many people in such tight spaces that the crush made it difficult to walk. Around 2, it was impossible to see more than a dozen yards ahead because of the crowds. And as the 3 o'clock hour of the parade approached, the crowds on the sidewalk so encroached on the street that organizers gave up on keeping it clear. Everyone was here for the annual Carnival Parade, held on the first Thursday after the third Wednesday of August. A formula complicated enough to occasionally trip up vacationers, but known by heart by every resident of Land's End. It was a week-long, over-the-top affair that celebrated everything yet commemorated nothing. The business community invented Carnival decades ago to drum up visitors as the summer began to wane. Over time, it had grown into a series of events, dances, special performances, and parties that showcased what Provincetown did best: have a good time for no reason at all. Restaurant reservations for Carnival Week are snapped up at the beginning of the season. Houses, condos, and hotel rooms must be booked a year in advance, and cocktail invitations are as valuable as gold. Resale tickets to the famous Mudslide Street Party, a highlight of the week, go for over $1,000, and there will be a block log lines to get into clubs on Wednesday night. Forget work for the week, visitors are advised. Debauched Provincetown will wear you out, first time carnival attendees are warned, but you'll have a smile on your face when you collapse from exhaustion. Even before the official parade stepped off, the unofficial procession of costumed and half naked revelers was at an intoxicating high. Giddy, anarchy loving Provincetown can't be confined by the constraints of application forms and formal schedules. More people strut down the street than marched in the parade, and if folks don't want to wear costumes, they'll strip down to the bare legal minimum. Show offs, dressed and undressed, are welcomed by a gauntlet of selfies and enthusiastic applause from as Carnival celebrates spectacle. This year's theme was dreams and fantasies. Many had spent 12 months working on their costumes and were determined to advertise their creativity and physical attractiveness. Among the celebrants were a group of bare-chested men dressed as firefighters. Whenever they stopped to perform a little dance that involved boot stomping, suspender snapping, and axe twirling, 100 people would crowd around them to take pictures. They were almost as popular as the perennial town favorite, the Churromation Society, who this year wore 1960s era nurse outfits complete with old-fashioned caps, white dresses, and creakled-sole shoes. When they stopped to shimmy to single ladies, dozens of spectators declared their undying love to them. One couple, he a ravishing Bonnie Parker and she a dashing Clad Barrow, were accompanied by another, a cross-dressing version of John and Jackie Kennedy. There were thousands of others on parade and in the parade, vying for attention. Everyone, spectators and posers alike, were laughing, shouting, and jumping with excitement as Provincetown showed off its innate exuberance. One man, however, was not getting into the silly fun. And that's how the story begins. Thank you.
Russ, that's great, thank you. So glad you could be here. And by the way, I should add that you can't see it because we didn't turn this around, but there's actually a decent crowd here. So
They certainly sound loud.
And more online. And by the way, these readings are archived on YouTube forever. So, just keep shooting out that link and it's all good. Thank you, Russ. I should add too that I think all our readers tonight come to us via Michelle Carlsberg, who's a publicist, queer publicist, and also was a founder of the Publishing Triangle back in the late 80s. So we obviously are pleased that she is sending us a lot of her clients who are writing great books. Oh, Russ, one more thing before I let you go. Is your book out now, or is it coming soon?
It is out in 10 days, March 1st.
Okay, you heard that. 10 days, March 1st.
You don't mind a little thing. I've been telling people it's available at Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and whatnot, but really go to your local bookstore and buy it. Please.
Good point, good point. Yeah, I mean, we sell books where we can, I get it. But yes, Bureau of General Services Queer Division, where we are right now, will have copies and they will happily sell them to you. I'm really fascinated about our next reader. Excuse me. As Chief Information Officer of Lululemon, Julie Averill led the technology transformation that helped scale that company from $2 billion to over $10 billion in revenue while building global terms capable of sustaining that growth. This might be too TMI. I don't know if we should blame the night or the Dayquil on this, but also like excellent underwear. But okay. Julie spent her career navigating systems that weren't designated for her. and help change them along the way. A female leader in technology, a gay woman in rooms where difference still raised eyebrows, a mother who carried two and adopted one child while leading global technology organizations, and a chief information officer who believed the future of AI depends less on machines and more how humans are willing to, and more on how humans are willing to be. She's also, of course, an author, which is why she's here right now. Her forthcoming memoir, Chief Impact Officer, is coming in June, I believe, from Simon & Schuster. Joining us from Bellevue, Washington, where she lives with her wife Cindy and her 3 children, please welcome Julie Averill.
Thank you so much. And I can't see everyone there, but I do want to thank you so much for being here and being part of this. And I will say that both of my boys attest to the underwear being life-changing. I don't know myself, but that's the word. So I wrote this book. I left Lululemon about 5 months ago, started writing this book about a year ago. And it's a book about transformation, first about myself, second about my transformation experiences in transforming companies. And then the purpose of the book is my hope that it will help transform lives and have impact in the world. So I'm going to start reading from chapter 8, which is about building our Bangalore office. It was early 21. The world was still locked down. Sesha and I were doing a lot of what leaders were doing that year, walking outside 6 feet apart, venting about things that were breaking, vendor frustrations, missed deadline, communication gaps at exactly the wrong moments. The pandemic had ripped the curtain off how fragile our dependencies really were. When everything went remote overnight, when stores closed and digital became not just our main channel, but our only channel, we couldn't afford to wait for contractors who worked only during business hours halfway around the world. And then I said something almost without thinking. I wish we had our own hub in India. Sesha stopped walking. Even with masks and distance, I could see the shift in his expression. We can do that. That moment, that offhand comment on a pandemic walk sparked one of the most transformational initiatives in my career. And it became a masterclass in something that I want to talk to you about today. Inclusion isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smartest business strategy you can pursue. Here's what was actually happening underneath that walk. I was staring at spreadsheets that told a story I didn't like. We had doubled our employees since 2018, but nearly 3/4 of our labor budget was going to contractors, hundreds of critical positions held by people with no long-term commitment to the company. The breaking point came when one contractor managing a critical project demanded to be hired as an employee. Title that didn't match his actual ownership, salary outside our bands. The request landed on my desk as an exception because of how critical his work was. I was looking at 2 bad choices: hurt business outcomes by losing him, or set a precedent that we'd abandon our workforce principles when someone had leverage. I chose a third option. I moved a resource in and exited the contractor. We missed a deadline. Some leaders questioned the call, but what was clarified was this: we had contractors with too much leverage, and giving in would only make it worse. I'd watch the same cycle repeat: hire contractors to move first, lose them when the contract ended, hire new contractors to rebuild what we just lost. Expensive, exhausting, and strategically dangerous. And there was a bigger problem. Our business was global and running 24/7, but we were leveraging talent essentially from one time zone. When Vancouver and Seattle went home, work stopped. When something broke in Asia Pacific overnight, it waited until PST morning. We were outsourcing our future. The opportunity. Here's what most Western companies were missing about India. India had just overtaken the United States to become the world's largest base of open source contributors on GitHub. India produces more engineering graduates than any other nation. It's still home to the largest pool of data scientists, AI researchers, cloud architects outside of Silicon Valley. By 2030, 1 in every 3 new developers globally will come from India. Companies that treated India just as a place to save money were missing the point entirely. This wasn't about cost, it was about capability. India wasn't a secondary option, it was a strategic competitive advantage. So what started as a frustrated comment became an 8-week sprint to prepare for the board of directors. That contract was signed by February 2021. By June, Session had moved to Bangalore, and we had our official India Tech Hub grand opening. From the very beginning, we knew we wanted to build something different, something with a culture that reflected who we were. And to do that, I needed to understand India on its own terms. For years, I'd experienced India through this very curated lens, vendor partners arranging safe for Westerner events, sanitized historical sites, elephants at sanctuaries with paid paths and gift shops. Beautiful, but somehow hollow. I knew from Ethiopia what unfiltered meant, and I knew that I was getting a theme park version. The shift happened when I stopped planning the itineraries and started saying yes to my team's suggestions. Venki and Station took me to their ancestors' temples, not a tourist destination, a living place of worship where their families had prayed for generations. Stone floors worn smooth by centuries of bare feet, the thick air with incense and devotion. They explained the significance of each carving, each ritual, with a reverence that made me understand this wasn't culture, it was identity. Session invited me to his parents' home for dinner. His mother spoke no English. She communicated through smiles and gestures as she served us homemade dal and chapati. I felt completely at home. I started walking the streets beyond the business centers. I tried street food despite protests from my security team. Samosas from roadside stalls, real chai, spicy chat that made my eyes water and taught me about layers of flavor I'd never experienced. And then there was pickleball. Session, knowing how much I love the game, took me to courts an hour outside the city, simple concrete slabs surrounded by a chain link fence. But the moment arrived, I was welcomed based solely on my willingness to play. They primarily spoke Hindi, but the sport created its own language. We played hard and celebrated good shots. One hot Bangalore morning, and I will admit this freely, I had not hydrated nearly enough, but my dad's voice was in my head. There's no crying in baseball. Apparently that had translated in my brain to there's no quitting in pickleball, even when quitting would have been the smart call. In the middle of a game, I felt my stomach turn. I kept playing. Just a few more points. Hold it together, Averill, until I started to collapse. I ran to the side of the court and threw up everything. Play stopped on all 3 courts. I was mortified. Everyone ran to me, even as I was begging them to please keep playing. One person ran home and brought back salt water. Another held my hair and rubbed my back. I saw their faces. They were worried, and I became more important to the moment than their game. When I recovered, they told me their secrets, hydrating the day before, cold towels around their neck, dark hats to deflect the sun. 6 months later, Sesha and I partnered together in a tournament in Goa. He and my female partner both got heat stroke. I did not. Mortification is an excellent teacher. Every country I travel to now, I bring my paddle, not just for work, everywhere. The court strips away hierarchy and language barriers. You learn more about someone in 10 minutes than an hour of small talk. Through Session's network, I connected with women's rights activists who have spent decades fighting for educational opportunities for girls in rural India. And here's what stopped me cold. In India's overall workforce, women represent just 24% of workers. In the IT sector specifically, that number rises to 34%. But nearly 47% of IT and computing postgraduates in India are women. Think about that gap. Almost half the graduates, only a third of the workforce. That's not a pipeline problem. That is millions of educated, capable women who either can't find companies willing to hire them or can't find environments where they can actually succeed. While most companies were complaining about talent shortages, we were looking at the largest untapped technical talent pool on the planet. We set a big, bold goal: build toward 50% women engineers in our Bangalore hub. And we knew that meant designing from the ground up, not hiring women who went into the same old system and expecting different results. We needed childcare support, flexible work arrangements, parental leave policies that actually worked, leadership development, and a culture that valued results over time. We also built our benefits package around inclusion in ways that went beyond industry standards: IVF support, gender transition procedures, partner benefits for LGBTQ plus employees, even though same-sex marriages wasn't legally recognized in India. We weren't following local customs. We were taking a leadership position because we believe talent thrives when people can bring their whole selves to work. And before we opened our doors officially, we hosted an Out with Pride event. Over 200 people, employees, community members, the public gathered for yoga, tai chi, smoothies, and celebration. I stepped onto the stage in a country where homosexuality had been decriminalized just 5 years earlier. And I talked about being gay, about what it had cost me to hide for so many years, and why creating a workplace where people could bring their whole selves mattered more than any business metric. The risk was real. Not everyone in the audience agreed with my choices, but I was there to send a clear message to every person we were about to hire. You don't need to hide here. Several women approached me afterwards and said they were considering whether they could work for us, not because I was gay, but because if I could be that open, maybe we could too. That became the foundation everything else was built on. 46% women ended up in our workforce. The inclusive benefits, the psychological safety that let people surface problems early. None of it would have worked if we started with policy instead of humanity. Thank you very much.
You know, everything you said resonate. I mean, and I'm not making this about me, but I mean, 25 years ago when I started my current day job, the one that pays bills, you know, I felt like I was the only queer person out there. You know, it's all about visibility. Now, you know, everyone is so used to it. I have to keep trying to find new ways to be more outrageous so they pay attention. Julie Averill, thank you so much. Chief Impact Officer is coming out in June, correct? From
June 16, available for pre-orders now.
Great. Oh, by the way, do you work at all with the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce?
I don't, not yet.
Okay. I think that might be a good way to sell some books, and you're an inspirational speaker. They know where they are, but you know where you are is at an elevated level. Well, I'll make a love connection.
Thank you, thank you.
Next, Ruben Teehee Hayslett is a queer author and activist whose work boldly confronts identity, power, and resistance. His debut short story collection, Dark Corners, was named Best Fiction of 2019 by Kirkus Reviews, earning acclaim for his unflinching exploration of marginalized experiences. His highly anticipated science fiction novel, Orbital Bebop, is about to be published because it's coming out in March. The book spans the solar system and nearly a millennium of human history, following queer people of color as they navigate love, resistance, and the fight for justice across planets and time. But there's more. Teehee's next novel, The Lover's Bridge, an E.O. Rodriguez mystery, is scheduled for release in 2027. This gripping queer pulp mystery follows Rodriguez, a former 90s child star, navigating Puerto Vallarta's vibrant nightlife. I want to buy both of those. Please welcome Ruben Teehee Hayslett.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. I'm not sure if the folks in the bookstore can see, but a friend of mine made a giant piñata of my book, so I'm kind of like right here. So check it out. It comes out March 10th, but you can pre-order online, and please support your local bookstores. I'm going to read a section from this book that takes place in the year 2249 on the moon, in a dockyard of sorts where they're preparing ships to go to Mars. And this is right in the middle of it, so I'll just jump in. The conceptual boards for the Red Room were Bug-Eyed Casino And I spent 3 roads programming spinning roulettes and giant jackpot tallies before a corporate yelled at me that it was supposed to be literally bug themed. Centipedes has a singular undulating bar that slowly crawls along the perimeter of a big dance floor in the center. Tigre is sitting on a spindly leg stool when I get there, wearing a bright yellow tunic that goes past his knees and maybe nothing else. This looks weird. Tigre laughs a little and gets up to hug me. He doesn't squeeze tight, so I don't. It's what corporate wanted, I say and shrug my shoulders. I sit down next to Tigre and an AI girl pops up on the wall in front of us. She's wearing a shiny black corset and leggings and antenna. What kind of shine are you boys having tonight? She says. 2 moon mugs, Tigre says. He swipes his arm pad at the girl and she takes his cred. Don't get me in too much trouble, I tell him. Tigre smirks at me, bending the scar lines above his eyes. I won't tell if you won't. You know why corporate wants all these bugs? He asks. I don't. It's passenger conditioning. Mars is still farming insects for protein. You should see what the kid rec decks look like. But I can't. I'm only allowed on this rec deck. The moon mugs roll down the centipede's head and stop in front of us. Tigre cracks and clinks his against mine. Snake, he says, I feel like there's not enough shine and space to pay you back for, well, everything. I crack mine and take a swig. We were kids. I was just being a friend. You know what I mean. I took a longer swig and Tigre follows, mirroring me like he used to. The AI girl vapidly blinks at us until Tigre shoos her with his hand. I want to say something, but my tongue feels like lead. Instead, I just stare at Tigre. His jaw is smooth where mine is always patchy with hair. I can never quite grow a full beard. The strobe lights from the dance floor cross his face, and a few of them pick up shadows under his scar lines. What? He says. Oh, I'm sorry. I fight through my heavy tongue and keep speaking. 20 years, man. I literally, I literally never thought I'd see you again, Tigre says and takes another drink. You know, sometimes I would think maybe I just made you up, like a coping mechanism. He laughs. I'm sorry. I know that sounds stupid. No, you had a tough go. I mean, a lot of people don't ever make it off the names. But here we are on the moon. Tigre raises his mug, but I don't, not at first. Here we are sitting together, but in very different places. Tigre reads my face, and the second clink of our mugs isn't as festive as the first. Fuck, Tigre says. Look, I cut him off. No, don't apologize. It's not your. And then he cuts me off. No, I should ask. I know that, but I don't want to. Tigre motions for the AI girl, swings his finger in the air for another round, swipes his arm pad, and shoos her off again. It's all so fluid, like swim strokes, like he's done this so many times before. Tigre says, can we just do all those questions some other time? Like put all this corporate crap to the side and just get drunk? We've never actually had mugs together. We stole one once, I remind him, and Tigre beams a smile at me that sends me back decades. That doesn't count. We couldn't even finish it. It was so gross. They're not gross anymore. A lot of things aren't gross anymore, Tigre says, and like a reflex, I cup his knee with my hand. First, his eyes go wide, but then they relax. I finish my mug, and he does too. 2 more roll down the centipede. Somewhere in the third mug, my hand slides off Tigre's knee, and he doesn't seem to notice. He's telling me a story about something that happened on D1, but I only half listen. The shine buzzes in my brain, and I can only concentrate on parts of Tigre. His teeth when he smiles, his deep brown eyes, the small bit of his chest just above the button of its tunic. Tigre stops talking when I put my hand on his shoulder and lean in. I draw him towards me and we meet in our lips. But when I pucker and nudge him, there's no response. He doesn't move. For a second, we're like 2 dumb rocks just barely touching. Then I pull back. What are you doing, Snake? He asked me. I thought I try to get out, but I try to get it out, but my tongue feels like lead again. You thought what? You thought we were gonna fuck or something? I grab my mug and take a giant gulp. I'm sorry, I'm drunk and straight, Snake. You're straight. You made that clear. What? On Ramirez, Tigre narrows his eyes in on me, just like he did to Bark the night before. Do you not remember? No, I stammer. I mean, yeah, I remember everything. I told you how I felt about you, and you just got up and left. The shine starts to flush in different directions in my head, but that somehow unlocks my tongue. One, I start, we were fucking teenagers. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. And two, you left. You jumped ships, and I never saw you again. I can feel the moon mugs gurgling in my stomach, and it feels like fuel. Do you know how much I worried about you? How much my mom worried about you? I mean, eventually we just thought you were dead. Me bringing up my mom lands on Tigray like a rivet shot. We sit in silence for a few seconds that stretch like hours. When the AI girl shows up again, Tigray's hand flows through the air for another drink. I'm sorry, Tigray says with his eyes straight ahead before eventually settling them on me. I start to speak up, but he places his hand on my shoulder, quieting me. I never meant for you or for her to worry about me. But somebody had to, I tell him. You know, I remember how much you used to say that you felt so alone all the time. But Tigray, you were always saying that to me. You weren't actually alone. You're right, Tigray says. The centipede's head bobbles two more mugs, and they roll down back towards us. Last ones, I tell him before cracking mine. Tigray's gaze wanders away. He's somewhere between the bar and the wall screen. I clink my mug against his. Hey! And I wait for his eyes to land back on me. It always feels better when he's looking at me. I'm sorry too for I motioned in between us earlier. I think some part of me has just always been a little curious. Always? He asks, and I can practically read his face. He's remembering what I'm remembering. For me, it's the way he screamed, "Don't look at me," that gets lodged in my head. Even when I heard it then, the first time we tried to kiss, the rope before he left, Tigray's eyes scan up and down the length of my body. I was always huskier than all the boys my age. I still am now. We were almost done with our mugs when I speak up again. Let's do a flat toast. A what? A flat toast, I tell him, where you cheers the last drink instead of the first one. They don't do this in the colleges? Tigray shakes his head. No. We clink mugs, down the last, slam our mugs on the bar, and we have to say the one thing that we want, both at the same time, but only one word. The scar lines on his forehead shifts as he looks cross at me. No, it's a real thing on Yao, I promise. It's actually how my tongue goes lead again and I just stop. I realize I still have my family photo tucked in my chest pocket, and the thought makes my stomach plunge like I'm writing down from orbit. How you, what? I actually crack a bead of sweat in my hairline before I'm finally able to open my mouth and make the words, no, never mind. It's late. We should go. But Tigray puts his hands on my shoulder again and says, no, let's do the flat toast. I don't know if it's his touch or just being touched that steadies me, but I'm back in the moment. The red and yellow lights bounce off the dance floor, play around on the wall in front of us. Tigray's tunic has this metallic stitching that also picks up the light, but I'm in a dirty slate gray coder suit. And the both of us are just sitting here at a centipede bar on the moon, far away from anyone who ever knew either of us from before. One word of what we want, and we have to say it at the same time. We clink mugs. I study Tigray as we throw them back. Our mugs land on the centipede's back like a bass thump. I say to him, you, and he says to me, freedom. Thank you.
Ruben Teehee Hazelitz. I mean, so far what I've heard, I see a whole lot of books that should, excuse me, be submitted for Publishing Triangle Awards for 2027, which will honor the best books published this year. So y'all keep this in mind, and I'm sure Michelle will be, reminding me. But this, so far so good. I have no expectation it will, I think we're gonna stay on a roll here with our next reader. But before I get to that, Again, remember that the awards, Publishing Triangle Awards ceremony will be held on Thursday. Remember, right? April 16th, starting at 6:30. Free ceremony, free reception. A lot of your favorite queer writers will be present. Many of them will be on stage that night. And it'll be a great way to honor the best books, the best queer books published in 2025. In addition, our host, Emmanuel Xavier, always puts on a good show. So please do try to come by. We're going to be at the new school at 66 West 12th Street. And you will know more about this, by the way, if you subscribe to our newsletter. If you are not already on our newsletter, go to, email us rather, at publishingtriangle@gmail.com. It's pretty easy. We have like more specific addresses, but I have a hard time getting into them because Outlook's been weird lately. I'll make sure you're on the list. So we'll be getting at least 2 or 3 reminders before April 16th. I guess that's all. One thing I wanted to, this is a very personal thing because I want to, let people know I'm getting older, but I'm relevant. I was in the Epstein files. No, seriously. In 2002, my first novel came out, and my agent got me placed in Page 6. It just so happened that was one of the first times that Jeffrey Epstein started getting in trouble. So he also had an item in Page 6. So my partner goes and searches and finds me there. He says I can't put it on social media, but there's no reason I can't put it on YouTube, right? So it's kind of my little claim to fame. When I heard about it, of course, I didn't put it on social media. I just texted the world, like, look at me, how cool I am. Nope, I didn't give him the content. And the reason I bring that up is because T said, one of his lines was, "What are we, fucking children?" So, or teenagers? So, but went over like a J.D. Vance joke. Okay, now, and I told him he could actually expand on his bio since he's like one of our newest writers out there. Andy Barrow is a New York-based writer. His debut novel, Peter in Progress, which will be coming out in June, correct? Yes. It draws its inspiration from his own later-in-life gay awakening. When he's not writing, Andy is likely perfecting his backhand, chasing his next cold brew, or making up for lost time on the dance floor. Please welcome Andy Barrow.
Thank you. Should I do stool? I'm Andy Barrow, and the mic is okay? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm Andy Barrow. Thank you so much for being here. Peter in Progress is my debut novel. This is my first ever author reading, so it's an extra special night for me. And this is a book about a man, Peter, in his 30s, who has a lot of changes in his life. Most significantly, he realizes a little bit later than most that he is indeed gay. So it's a later in life coming out and coming of age, and a story about personal evolution and transformation. For the reading, I wanted to take us more into the heart of the novel. So we're going to visit Peter's first underwear party in Hell's Kitchen. We'll start with his new friend Danny at their apartment getting ready. He's meeting Danny's group of friends, and then we'll go to the party. And then one important piece of context is that we'll run into Adam, who is Peter's best friend from college, who's been out for his whole life, but he has not been on speaking terms with Peter since Peter came out to him. So that's what you need to know. All right. Oh, and before we start, does anybody have a good whistle in the crowd? I really need a whistle. Yeah, less like come hither, more like. Okay, so when I point, it's you. Okay, great. Peter, look at these incredible options. Danny emerged from his bedroom with an array of undergarments draped on his left arm. He held them up one by one. White Calvin briefs, black pump bikini, red Andrew Christian. He is too excited, said Justin. This is his Cher Horowitz moment. The crew laughed. Do you know Clueless, Peter? Of course I know Clueless. I was closeted, not dead. Peter froze. The quip had been a reflex. To his great relief, the crew howled. I thought you said he was a baby gay, said Gio. Oh, he is, said Danny. Doesn't sound like one. Doesn't look like one either. JM raised his eyebrows. There you go, absolutely hopeless. Gio rolled his eyes. Peter blushed. Let's check out those underwear options? Yes, let's. JM winked. Try these on. Danny threw the Calvin briefs at Peter's chest. Peter slid behind the kitchen counter and pulled down his jeans. He stretched the Calvins over his cheeks. They snapped into place. He stepped, tentatively, back into view. JM whistled. Shirt off, commanded Danny, and spin. Peter complied. Perfect. He's ready. They're not too tight. Too tight, said no gay man ever. Danny laughed. Boys, get your things. It's time. Half an hour later, Peter stood at the club's entrance. A black velvet curtain muffled beats from within. Peter took a breath, parted the curtain, and stepped through. Inside, dense tufts of machine smoke hung in the air. Purple blue lights flashed across the room. Pulsing music thumped like heartbeats, brimming with life and ambition, hungry to be heard. Through the haze, Peter made out a long bar to the left, some high tables to the right, and beyond those, shadowy outlines of men on the dance floor. He stepped out of his shoes, peeled off his shirt and jeans, and stuffed them in the brown grocery bag provided at check-in. The chilly club air struck Peter's nearly bare skin. He exhaled, retied his shoes, and stood up slowly. There he was, at an underwear party, in his underwear. Well, in Danny's underwear. Ow, ow, cried Danny, strutting toward him from the entrance. The boys gathered around the table and disrobed. They complimented one another's garments in turn. JM's lavender assless chaps commanded the most attention. The color was divisive. He seemed happy to spark some low-stakes debate. As the boys undressed further and bantered on, they stole quarter turns toward and away from mirrors on the wall, inspecting themselves before going live. Peter cataloged the group's many assets: JM's firm butt, Danny's long toned legs, Gio's rather full G-string. And yet, Peter was noticing, not lusting. And that was new. He liked the feeling, being drawn toward men as nascent friends rather than potential lovers. Here, in the club, he saw a real glimmer of gay friendships forming. Clad in their briefs and thongs and chaps, the boys made for the dance floor. Peter was quickly overwhelmed. So many bodies, all but naked, moving about, shoulders, pecs, traps, abs, butts, thighs, legs, twisting and shaking, glowing with sweat, illuminated then obscured by rotating lights. Peter thought of a Picasso, parts and pieces everywhere, chaotic, yet beautiful. Look at you, said Justin, shouting in Peter's direction, like a kid in a candy store. Peter shrugged. It's a lot. Justin laughed. Gio returned from the bar with shots. The five of them circled up and faced inward. After raising their glasses, they danced hard to the music, a string of pop anthems, Ari and Gaga and Dua on repeat. Peter relaxed into the songs. He allowed his hips and shoulders to move where they wanted. He savored the sensation of cool, smoky air against so much of his skin, and he continued to study the throng of men. With time, the disorienting pastiche came into sharper relief. Body parts became people, then characters, energetic dancers, happy couples, brave lone souls. At one point, Peter felt a large, hard something pressed between his butt cheeks through the Calvin briefs. He was startled, but not upset. In response, he moved his hips, gyrating them to thank this stranger for his special hello. Peter leaned backward and felt tufts of chest hair graze his shoulder blades. The stranger brought his arms around Peter's waist and traced his fingertips up Peter's stomach, then wrapped them around Peter's chest. The man placed his lips on the small of Peter's neck. Then, Peter? The voice struck like ice. Peter stepped away from the stranger and turned toward the voice. It was Adam, standing at the dance floor's edge. For a few long moments, Peter and Adam stared at one another, unable to speak. Peter could barely form thoughts. All he could do was notice things: Adam's handsome face and disheveled dark hair, his lean swimmer's muscles, slick and sweaty, on full display in a navy thong. Marco at his side, hip cocked. Peter's own body felt cold and exposed. He ached for the clothes in the brown bag. Instinctively, he sucked in his stomach and straightened his spine. Adam spoke first. "What are you doing here?" His eyes were wide, their green somewhat dulled in the club's fog. "He was enjoying the party," said Danny, appearing at Peter's side. "Who's this?" "My friend," managed Peter. "My friend, Danny." "Your friend?" Adam's eyes narrowed. "Yes, his friend," Danny repeated. Adam glared at him, then turned back to Peter. "What are you doing in the city? Are you visiting?" "No, I moved back." Peter felt his nakedness again, the chilly club air over too much skin. "You moved back?" Peter remained still. "And you didn't tell me?" Adam's eyes, no longer dull, became angry emeralds in the smoky air. Peter trembled. The boys stood in silence. Around them, music blared, and lights flashed, and men danced. As Peter continued to stare into Adam's angry eyes, something changed. He grew resentful of his friend's disdain. How dare Adam look at him this way? Adam had said, "I can't handle this." Adam had said, "When I'm ready." Adam had left Peter in limbo for months. What right did Adam have now to look at him with such contempt? Peter's trembling, which had felt fearful just moments before, now felt angry as those green eyes. "You told me that you would reach out," Peter said, "when you were ready." Adam tilted his head back. "Come on, this is different." "How is this different?" "You moving back here is a huge thing. It affects us both. You should have told me." "I hadn't heard from you. I wasn't ready." "And now?" "And now we're having this conversation at a club in our fucking underwear." Adam huffed and looked back toward the dance floor. Danny put his hand on Peter's shoulder. "We should go." Adam snapped back to face Peter. His eyes said, "Don't you try." This was so like Adam, Peter realized. Adam expected Peter to speak or to hush up, to leave or to stay, all at his whim. After all these years, Adam suddenly reeked of the lifelong privileges that his beauty and wealth had afforded him. Peter stepped forward and declared, "I've been a good friend to you, Adam." "Excuse me?" Adam glowered and crossed his arms. "I said, I've been a good friend to you. This is on you. You said you would reach out. You didn't. I respected your wishes." "Petey, that's such bullshit." "It's not bullshit. Do you know how hard it's been for you?" Adam pointed at Peter's chest. "Hard for you?" "Maybe I don't. Maybe I've been too busy dealing with the fact that my best friend came out to me, then told me he was in love with me out of nowhere after 15 years of... Do you have any idea how hard that's been?" Peter flinched. Adam's words seemed at once honest and cruel. Marco reached for Adam's arm. "Babe, I can't believe him," said Adam. "Let's go dance," said Marco. "This is not the time or place." "He's right," said Danny. "Let's go." Peter nodded, slowly, unsure what else to do. Adam ran both of his hands through his dark hair. He looked up at the ceiling for a few seconds, then looked back at Peter. "Good luck, Petey," he said.
And that concludes our reading for tonight. Again, remember, Publishing Triangle Awards on April 16th. We'll be announcing the finalists in mid-March, as well as our special award winners. But it's going to be a great event, and again, free. So if you're in New York, be there. Thank you to Russ Lopez, June Averill, Ruben Teehee Hayslett, and Andy Barrow. And we'll be back again. Greg and I will work out the date, but I believe we'll be back again next month. So thank you all.
Shout out to Brooklyn.